Hey there, RPG fans. Welcome back for another episode of Random Encounter. Happy Canada Day to all the Canadian listeners out there, and in advance of Happy Independence Day for all the American listeners. Also, happy birthday to my daughter, Gwen, because that's her birthday as well, on Independence Day. Convenient. Easy to remember. So anyhow, this is a mercifully brief, you thought I was going to say episode, not on Random Encounter, but this is going to be a mercifully brief little opening, because really, we've been so focused on all the E3 coverage, there hasn't been a lot of time for a lot of reviews and everything to get up. So do check out our ongoing, updated daily E3 2019 coverage to check out all the previews and stuff that we've gotten our hands on in the RPG world. Also, we've dropped our E3 2019 Editor and Show Awards, which has, just everything as a nice special feature that the RPG fan crew took a look at the show and dropped awards on. So if you want to see what we think is best, that's where you want to go. Other things of note, we have Crowdfunding Chronicles Volume 15 that Tina is consistently working on. So again, another handful of great little indie gems that have been going live on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. So please go check out what's happening with that little article. The only review really to talk about is Sega's Judgment, the action RPG that Zach Wilkerson got his hands on. He talks about it on this episode, actually, because the review went live the day of recording. So go have a look if you want to see a little more in-depth look into his thoughts on it, and the pros and the cons and all that good stuff, how he felt about it overall, which seems pretty positive. And the final thing of note, we at the video team have dropped yet another review on you. We've got Dragonstar Varnir, which is also another review of Zach's. He lended his voice to David's editing work, and we've got ourselves a nice little tight Dragonstar Varnir review for you to watch. So head on over to the site or to our YouTube channel, subscribe, check that out. And yeah, that's it. We got nothing else. It's just E3 all the time. Once we get through all that, I think we'll be getting caught up on a lot of our backlog of reviews and everything else, because we have a nice big chunk of stuff that's ready to publish. So keep checking out RPGFan.com, and in the meantime, enjoy Random Encounter 167. Hello everybody out there, my name's Greg Delmage. Welcome to another episode of Random Encounter. You can find me at Greg Delmage on Twitter, and I'm on the Discord as G Delmage. So, any combination of G's and Delmage, you'll find me somewhere on the interwebs. Today I'm joined by three lovely fellows. I've got, first of all, Peter Triesenberg, longtime friend of the show.
Hi everybody, Peter Triesenberg. You can find me at I Have Fury on Twitter.
So much fury!
All of the fury.
And we have Nathan Lee, another returning guest.
Hello, everyone.
Nathan, you sound like a vampire.
Nathan Lee has come to suck your games. I don't know.
That almost went places.
Sure did. I was like, don't sully this, don't sully this, don't sully this. Anyways. And then finally, second time, I guess, around on Random now, since he had the pleasure of going to E3, is Zach Wilkerson.
Hi, everybody. You can reach me at ZachW@RPGFan.com and also ZachW on Discord.
Nice. This is my first time with Zach since I was not at E3, so welcome to the show with me, Zach. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
And thank you both, Nathan and Peter. Let's talk about some games. Has everyone been doing good? Everyone's gotten through the E3 craziness and the hype of all the good things?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I survived.
Yeah, we made it. The news side of things was pretty packed this year.
I was going to say, yeah, you've had a lot of updates and previews and things to drop, and I'm sure you're all scrambling for that.
Yeah.
And they're still coming out.
It's like, someone help me with this appalling amount of Square Enix news, please.
Yeah.
Oh, but I loved it this year.
Well, especially for us being RPG coverage, and that's basically everything they dropped on us was RPGs when the Square conference happened. So, yeah, you had your work cut out for you. That's not crazy at all.
It was a very heavy year, but we pulled through. And there's lots to look forward to.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I mean, enough of it was probably talked about for some people on the E3 podcast. But at least for myself, yeah, I really was loving like every tidbit that was dropped from Nintendo to Square Enix, and there's even a few things in the Microsoft conference I can't bring back. But I was just like, oh, this looks really promising, and like if this was the first year when the Xbox One had come out, I may have actually strongly considered grabbing one because there was enough on it that it was dragging my attention in. But yeah, at this point, I'm committed to my Switch and my PS4, and that's good enough for me. But
Fair enough.
I did, yeah, as everyone, loved that Keanu Reeves reveal and his involvement because he's just so delightful and charming.
We were literally just preparing for a John Wick marathon when that happened, and I like audibly squealed. So it was a moment.
Yeah.
You weren't the only one, don't worry. I think that was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I was hoping for all kinds of different surprises. I didn't get my Pikmin, and there was not much. There wasn't really anything given for Metroid, of course, because they probably had a lot more to do on it, and that's fine. I respect that because
They were hiring somebody for it like right after the show.
Oh, nice.
I think.
well,
Yeah.
Nintendo's definitely taking a good, strong stance on being good to its workers, and it's dumb that like their stocks plummeted because of that, but
Right. Yeah.
they'll hopefully turn around.
Capitalism gonna be.
Yeah, capitalism going to try and make money. For myself, yeah, Final Fantasy VII was definitely a big highlight. Trials of Mana being released was awesome.
Yes.
Out of left field, for me, was the Dark Crystal game. When they announced that, I was
Yeah,
like,
that came right out of nowhere. That was like right the second game they showed off.
yeah,
Everyone who didn't know about the Netflix series was really confused.
well, at first I thought they were just teasing that Netflix was coming to Switch finally.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
first thought too.
Same here.
And then they're like, nope, here's a strategy tactical RPG, possibly. Like, right now it's just labeled as a tactical game, but it likely will be an RPG, I'm guessing, but we'll see if it falls in our coverage. Either way, it looks really pretty, and it's really neat, and I'm like, I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun little out-of-nowhere discovery that I'm glad was dropped on us. Any surprises for you other gents who weren't able to make it to E3?
I was a lot of surprises. I mean, Trials of Mana dropping out of nowhere was pretty exciting. We're finally getting Romancing Saga 3. That's exciting. Like a game, I like in general games that we haven't like had a chance to play.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 8. The Missing Link is coming out on all consoles, and that's exciting.
That was a nice surprise, too, yeah.
I'm glad they're like really committed to preserving their old games. That's important.
I'm hoping next year they do, like, tactics on Switch. That'll be a great drop.
Please
Tactics
do.
If we get
everywhere.
War of the Lions on the Switch, I will be set.
Yep.
Square has said they want all the games to be digital, so there's hope yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also take Let Us Cling Together, because I don't need a PSP. And they want to still make money off that stuff, so come on.
I was really surprisingly excited for Tales of Arise,
Mm.
and I'll get into that a little bit later.
Right, because that is relevant, yeah.
But that game looks really sharp, and I'm like actually really want to play a Tales game now.
Nathan, anything that grabbed your attention from E3 that you're pretty stoked about?
I was just pulling out the list here, trying to see if I remembered anything. I think for me it was Breath of the Wild sequel coming out, like this got announced. I wasn't expecting Nintendo to just come out and say that, oh yeah, we got Breath of the Wild sequel coming out.
Although I think Phil is right when he was doing his like analysis of it, that probably next year's holiday season we'll get it.
I hope so, because I personally have that pin for a 2021 release. But we'll see.
Start a pool.
Place your bets.
I mean, it looks like they're using the same engine for it, which will help, I think, speed up development a lot.
Yeah, they'll just want to find a prime time to drop it.
Right.
Now, will it be a different world map? Is the question.
There's probably to change something about it.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, I think they're bringing in Monolith to work on a new world map, so I would imagine so.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll take you to another region of the world
Yeah.
or something outside of Hyrule. If it goes like a bit of Majora's Mask. Going to Termina. I don't know.
And then I guess I think like along with everybody, seeing Trials of Mana or Seiken Densetsu 3 getting a remake plus the collection coming out on Switch on pretty much the day it was announced. That was also
Yeah, both those blew my mind. That remake looks real good.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm personally waiting for the remake, so I'll wait on picking up. Well, I probably won't be picking up the Mana collection, so I'll just wait till the remake comes out and play it then.
Oh, fair enough.
My biggest regret of E3 was not bringing my Switch to LA so I could download it immediately.
And Zach was I mean, you probably spoke about most of it on the podcast, but I guess still, what was your biggest like shocking moment that you're like, this?
Actually, having a playable demo of Final Fantasy VII at E3 was probably the biggest shock for me personally. Just getting to get my hands on it and feeling just how smoothly it plays. I don't think that there were a lot of things that I thought were total shocks, because most of the things I think had been teased at some point, like Trials of Mana was like super exciting, and Final Fantasy VIII I'd heard some rumblings about. But my best surprise might be how amazing Final Fantasy VIII looks. Compared to what they did with 7 and 9, looks like they've just up-res the graphics. If you look at them side by side, Final Fantasy VIII looks amazing.
I really hope they were touching up the backgrounds as well. That's the one thing that all of them have lacked so far, so
I agree.
We shall see what happens. Well, yeah, we had, again, a lot of great stuff come out of this E3. It was a really powerful year for the gaming industry, so we have some good stuff moving forward, and who knows when Sony's gonna, I guess, tease whatever they've got going on, since they're trying to figure out how to, quote-unquote, better reach their audience or whatever, which is why they weren't there, which I get. It's a big money sink. To that end, like, how viable do you see E3 kind of being moving forward? Is it struggling? This is why they've opened the doors up to fans to make money, to let people onto the floor and sustain it, because the big companies aren't pouring as much into it, don't see as much value in it now that they can just stream stuff. And even then, not as much people are showing up either, and not enough news companies maybe are showing up media-wise, because they can just see the streaming and then report on it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Really, I know Sony's probably going to hold their own event for the PS5 reveal. I would imagine, because that's what they've been doing recently, is they've been starting their own kind of direct style presentations.
Yeah, it's just a question: is it relevant anymore to the industry? Like, it does hype things up and makes everything really exciting each and every year. It's kind of like how the industry has changed for the film side of things when it comes to pilot season. Like, initially for TV, it was all coming out at the beginning of spring, because that's when one of the biggest purveyors of money to the TV industry, which was car companies, that's when they were bidding and pitching and getting their stuff, because new cars were coming out. So the fact that it's all changed and we're moving into streaming, where commercial services aren't necessary to sustain television, we don't really see a pilot season so much anymore in the traditional sense. Like, it still gets a little busy around that period, but now you got all these streaming services that are like, we'll film pilots whenever we feel like it. So I'm wondering if it's slowed to the change, but if the gaming industry is going to start going the same way, where E3 won't be as relevant, because everyone will just tease and release and stream their service and their games out there whenever they want to, and the announcements of that.
I still personally think E3 will have its place in the gaming world. Like, but one of the things that is still up in the air is because they didn't renew at the Los Angeles Convention Center, we don't even know what E3 is going to be held next year. Yeah, that may affect like a lot of things about E3, because it is held there for, I think, ever since its conception, or not since conception, but for quite a long time. I'm not quite sure when they got the license or whatever to hold E3 at the LA Convention Center, but now it's not. That'll change a lot of people, like a lot of like media outlets that will go. Like, say if it ends up being in, like, say, New York, that's going to cut out a lot of gaming media, because they're going to have to travel all the way across the USA to go to New York. So that may affect like just a lot of things in terms of attendance.
Yeah, if it started touring or whatever the case is, it would definitely alter the face of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's something to be mindful of. This definitely has given me pause to wonder where it's going with companies like Nintendo kind of bowing back in some ways. I mean, they still have a presence there, though. Like, they still had a booth that they put a lot of money and time and effort into, so there is at least that.
Nintendo's booth was still amazing. I mean, just the amount of effort. The Luigi's Mansion booth in particular was like a whole setup with like flashlights, and it was dark inside. I mean, so Nintendo still had a huge presence there. But I mean, the one thing that E3 does that I don't think you can do otherwise is allow gaming press to get their hands on games, and sort of it's a centralized way to do that. And I still think that will probably be something that continues.
Yeah, that's
fair.
But
a lot of like the big announcements and all that stuff still happen before E3 or off-site. They're not even in the convention center when they're doing the announcements and things like that. So I think that probably it already has lost some of its power, but I think that it will maintain a presence for a while at least, just as sort of a centralized way to allow developers to talk to journalists and things like that. I mean, that's just my read on it, though.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it's not like they want to stream out demos or anything in the future, because they want to also make sure they're controlling the experience, are there to answer questions, which they can't do that if it's being streamed, and they can't assure that they can't assure that a media outlet is going to have the best possible system to run their game to make it look its best. So, yeah, that makes sense. There will definitely be a platform for people to have to play games and try them out, whether it's behind closed doors or on the show floor. That's true.
Yeah.
Valid point. Thank you. Well, moving on from E3 and all the excitement and hype of that, a lot of games were played. Last podcast episode that I was on, 165, I had mentioned near the end, I've been playing a game for review called Druidstone, The Secret of the Menhir Forest, which was by Control Alt Ninja, who splintered off from Almost Human. And Almost Human are the ones who developed Legend of Grimrock and all that sort of stuff. So this game is in that same sort of isometric looking vibe. And I never played Legend of Grimrock. Have any of you?
I have not.
No, I haven't either.
And neither have I.
I mean, as far as I know, it plays like a Baldur's Gate, like a classic, top-down RPG from that era. Whereas Druidstone, it looks very similar, like I said, but it's a strategy RPG and just plays so smooth. Like the whole setup scheme is very similar to like Fallout 1 or 2 or XCOM, where everyone has like a set amount of movement points and then an action they can do every turn, and it's just very simple to interface with, which is what I loved about it, because it's just so easy to dive into and just play, that you're focusing so much more on the missions and the tactics and not about all the minutiae, because it just doesn't have this bloat of like so many weapons and upgrades and like massive skill trees that are like give you incremental bonuses.
I feel like that's usually the problem with games like that, and why I sort of stay away from them. Like, oh man, it overwhelms me sometimes. So yeah, it's awesome to hear.
Exactly, and there's a place for that, and there's people who like that minutiae and like to like boil down those numbers. I love Final Fantasy Tactics for some of that aspect, and even then, Tactics is quite simple. Whereas you'll look at even some of the tech trees and like even Diablo, where this will give you a percentile increase to fire damage or whatever. Whereas in this one, it's simply like, if you get this ability, it gives you +2 health because you're tougher. Or if you get this ability, you can upgrade the ability by putting a power gem on it, and it gives you +1 more damage. It's not like in the percentile of you're based on your stats. Like your stats are literally just your health, your attack, your damage, and your movement range.
Interesting.
Yeah. So each character, you have like a pretty staple party. As I mentioned, my review will be going up soon. As I mentioned in my review, that you have Leonard, who's just like your typical warrior. You have Ava, who's like a scout/healer. And then you have Oiko, who it's not lost on me that he seems very similar to Orko from She-Ra. Orko wasn't She-Ra, right? The little wizard with the O in his...
That sounds right.
I think it was She-Ra. He wasn't He-Man.
Yeah.
Okay. At any rate, he's very much like that, kind of out of his time, and little mystical, impish wizard thing. But he focuses at first on fire magic. But he's just a general elemental mage. But he gets some control spells and stuff along the line. And then eventually you get like a guest party member that's kind of like, he's a cowboy thief rogue, so very much like I can see some Shadow inspiration in there. And you can basically summon him whenever you kind of need an extra hand in a mission, but it'll cost you money. So you basically hire him as a bounty hunter kind of thing for the mission. Cool. And then there's a fourth party member that joins as well as a permanent party member, but they're pretty silent in their addition, and they're kind of like a monk. So you've got like a good variety of styles and skills, and some of them do have some overlapping skills eventually if you level them up high enough, but basically every level you just get a choice between like this ability or this ability, and some of them are passive or they're both active or whatever, and you have 12 kind of slots that you can put them into, and they kind of almost seem like cards. So eventually once you get to, I want to say it was like level 12 or 13, somewhere around there, I had more skills than I had slots for, so that's when you're kind of getting into each mission and saying like, oh, what am I going to need? Do I want my ice spell for this one, and I don't need fire because the enemies are immune to fire, so maybe I can drop that, and give them more health. Stuff like that. It lets you kind of weigh those options, and you just plug and play with what you have. And it's the same with the inventory. Like you just have like 2 hands, so you can put a weapon in each hand, you have armor, and you have an accessory. And that's really all there is for like stuff to tool around with. But there's still so much customizability and variety within that system, even though it's so simple and easy for like anyone who has not ever played a strategy RPG to just pick up and go. But if you play it enough, you start realizing how different kind of abilities can sort of synergize. Like, oh, if I knock this enemy with this person's like power attack, it'll push them back and they'll be closer to so-and-so, so then they can do a power attack on them because they were out of movement points. So I can take advantage of, how to manipulate them around the map. Or if I knock this person back, then they're in position that Oiko can cast a group spell and get that one more person with his group fire spell. So it's really cool and satisfying when you can manipulate the map and it actually works. Like, it was nice seeing all these tactics come together. There's so many times where I was basically down to the wire and I was like, it's this turn or my entire party's dead. And I just used the right combination of skills and tactics to like manipulate the final boss monster or whatever it was I needed to do the damage to into the right place, to be in the right range, to move my mage into position or teleport them by swapping places with somebody, that they were able to cast their final big spell on them and be like, cool, it's done. And it was so satisfying to achieve those moments.
Yeah, that's the most satisfying thing in all of RPGs.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was really easy to get into. And this game does such a good job of rewarding each of those tactical moments when you've really made a plan for them together, that it made me want to come back to the game each and every time, which was great. The downside is, which again I mentioned in my review, is that up until like the final 2 big boss fights, all of this matters, but in the final 2 boss fights, it seems like none of it matters. Like, there's no real like tactical manipulation of the map to weaken the boss or do anything. The boss just seems super OP in both of those final 2 boss fights, because it definitely goes a little bit of like the classic JRPG route of like, this isn't even my final form, of having to fight the boss.
Right?
And so you're fighting these boss fights where you're just like, this is BS, and you're trying to do the tactics of getting around the map, because every mission, because you have like a big world map and you get these little missions from these things called Shido, which basically look like a Furby crossed with a Moogle. They're quite adorable,
Right.
and they're definitely aping on Moogles, but they basically are like, here's some mail, and it's a mission, and you can click on it, and then you have your objectives, and each one has a star rating for how well you succeed at the mission, so you can have the replay value of going back and challenging yourself to do better. Because you'll have just your like regular objective and maybe a secondary objective, but then they'll have bonus objectives where you can like earn extra money or earn power gems, which are things you slot into items and skills to improve them. And you can just pull them in and out, like, so you can use them as you need per mission. If you're like, oh, I need to boost up my fire spell for this one, so I'll make my fire attacks now be able to burn things. So like all that stuff's kind of important for trying to manipulate the mission in a way that you like still achieve the goal by the end of it, but also do all the secondary stuff so you just get more rewards. And they even have those in the final 2 missions, but it's like, no, you just gotta rush and kill the boss, otherwise you're gonna get murdered. And it was kind of annoying that it kind of threw all that out the window for the final boss fight. Like, they just kind of rushed it out the door because they're just so overpowered, it seems. And maybe I just wasn't, I don't know, is that what I felt was a pretty max level of like level 15 in the game, and I'd done every mission. I think you can maybe replay them and get some experience, but you don't get much. So I wasn't really sure how I was supposed to make myself more powerful. But I just ended up having to essentially just like blitz the boss, and that was basically my only way to do what I could do to end it. And it was very satisfying watching myself dole out the damage all in one turn. But I just felt like I was like, but I should be able to go over and do this thing or get that thing and achieve all my goals, so that way I can get a full 3-star rating on the mission and yada yada yada. So it'll take some heavy head scratching if I do decide to go back to it, how to achieve that. So I found that was kind of unfortunate, but otherwise it's like a really fun, simple to play game. The other thing that's neat is they don't just have combat missions, they also have these little puzzle missions, which were actually very satisfying. So you just have your party running around trying to solve a puzzle. So it all feels very much like a whole kind of like light D&D experience with, some adventures are broken up by being combat, some are broken up by, a puzzle thrown at you. Certain missions, you'll be like up in the mountains, and it'll be snowy, and it'll say like you have 8 turns to finish the mission, otherwise you're going to start freezing to death. So after that point you'll start taking cold damage on a regular basis. So like there's things that keep you tied to the environment, and you have to be mindful of various effects, and it gives it a lot of variety, so you're not just doing the same thing and over and over and over again, which I really loved about the game.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. Like, I honestly might have to check this out because, like I said, I don't have experience with the developers' previous games, but I love it when tactics games do stuff like that. When like you said, you have to be mindful of the environment. So yeah, I might have to look this up.
Yeah, I definitely not even just with like environmental hazards, like where water will slow you down or yada yada yada. But yeah, having just that added aspect is nice with the additional mission conditions. I also like that eventually you have like a shopkeeper, so you can get more equipment after the first few missions. But in order to build his warehouse of stuff to buy, you have to find crates of his stuff in the missions. It basically becomes one of the side quests. So in order to improve your shop options, you have to find the gear first. So I kind of like that aspect too, of not just giving it out as like on a power creep. It basically, you're rewarded for however much effort you want to put in. So you can probably get through the game with just whatever your basic equipment, but you're going to struggle. So it encourages you to do those secondary mission objectives and to track down each and every secret in each of the missions and such. Because sometimes there's going to be secret like walls and stuff that you have to put someone on a switch to get in to get a chest or something. I think it's really neat how well they implemented a lot of the exploration and again a lot of those D&D kind of moments into a turn-based strategy game.
Yeah, definitely.
And finally, yeah, it's funny for a Western seeming RPG, how many kind of JRPG elements were kind of thrown into it. Like, I was definitely getting a lot of Final Fantasy inspiration vibes from this team, just in not only like the Shido, but just kind of like the arc of the story, the different multiple forms for some of the boss fight stuff, your classic hero with amnesia, so to speak, because when Leonard comes to apparently his role as the warden, they get created by the forest in times of struggle. So he has just been created, not that we witnessed this, but he literally more or less came out of a cocoon. And so he's like, I don't know what's going on. And they're like, that's weird because the forest should inform you. So there's something clearly wrong. But don't worry, we'll figure it out with you. And you got your classic kind of amnesiac hero who's trying to struggle with his identity and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of those notes. And the soundtrack itself is very, I found, like kind of like Falcom kind of sounding rock guitar stuff for a lot of like the boss fights, and you got some tender moments which kind of sound a little westerny but still very, I would also hear them as easily in any JRPG as well. It was really interesting mashup of inspirations to make this game as a whole. But I do recommend picking it up if you like anything about strategy RPGs or the strategy game genre. It's super easy to digest and get into. It's not very demanding on the system. Like, my laptop was what I was playing in because it's Windows only at the moment, although I could see this game being right at home on the Switch, for example. As Windows only, my old laptop of, like, what is it, like 8 years old now, or I want to say? Or, sorry, 6 years old. My old MX-15. It struggled a bit at times to get things up to, like, 30 frames per second, but even still, in, like, some of the puzzle dungeons when there's not a lot going on, I was getting a full 60 frames per second. And there's really no graphical settings that you can change on it except like turn off the shading. So it really didn't punish me that badly. So it doesn't matter how intense your system is, you can probably play this game. And I definitely recommend picking it up because Control Ninja has given us a really neat world with the Menhir Forest and its surroundings for us to explore. And I really hope they keep doing more stuff with this, or at least some DLC, because it was a lot of fun. And once all those missions are done, I was like, okay, I want to try some more.
That's always the best feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We had Nathan. You were playing some Persona Q2 here. Solosi has been talking about that a lot. It dropped in Japan in November and came out here June 4th. So I know you've played it. I think Michael Solosi was playing it or wanted to play it, and Joe at the site I think was playing it as well. But at any rate, what's your thoughts on this?
All right, so Persona Q2 is, I think, the final 3DS game. I think that's going to get released in the West. So 3DS had a nice run. I think I'd like to look. I kind of look at Persona Q2 almost like this is the last one. So let's celebrate the life of the 3DS.
Yeah, no kidding. Pour one out. I love that thing.
I don't know if it's because it has the Persona characters in it, but I'm not a big fan of Etrian Odyssey. I tried, I think, the original and 4. I wasn't a fan of either. So creating your own map is not really my thing, and neither is first person dungeon crawling. So how I end up like playing Persona Q2 is a mystery to me. I must really like these characters that much, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Like it has the Persona but it's not really the same battle system. It's not like the same as the what one more system. It's the you still knock out enemies when they're weak. So basically the same system of finding enemies' weaknesses and then exploiting weaknesses to get basically advantages in battle. But it has a new system where once you use the weakness, you don't get another turn. Instead, your next attack will be more powerful, unless your character gets hit, and then you'll lose that power. So it's kind of like now it's a new strategy of making sure your characters are don't take damage, like when you do like attack that hits an enemy weakness. So I kind of like the like adjustments they made to the Persona battle system. Trying to think of story impressions. First movie. I guess the game takes place in a movie theater, so every single level is a movie. So the first movie has you against Kamoshida from Persona 5.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except now he's a superhero, apparently. So he goes from being, the pervy gym teacher to now being a superhero, and now in this movie he has the populace under his kind of control. Basically, the people don't have minds to think of for themselves, so they kind of just follow Kamoshida and do whatever he says is right, which is a really like false sense of justice that he has. Um, I don't know, like I haven't gone too far into the second part yet, so I'm not quite sure how like the overall story ends up happening. So in the movie theater you encounter, I think what's his name, Nagi and Hikari, and Nagi is the creator of the theater, and then Hikari is a girl who just ended up in the theater. You guys are locked in because for some reason they have a whole bunch of locks on the theater door, so you can't leave. And the objective is obviously escape the theater by beating the levels or the movies with the keys that are dropped by the guy who runs the movies. What's his name again? Is it Doe? I think his name is. Like as in like like pudding dough, but they spell it spell it DOE.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he was the one who runs the movies, and he's the one who gets the keys, but only after you beat the movie.
It's weird mystical. How did the movies come to life?
No idea. Basically, the movie that plays the same scene over and over again until the characters go into the movie and then play it out themselves, and the movie plot changes. So it's kind of interesting that way.
I mean, it's not like there's willing suspension of disbelief for Persona for
True.
all their powers and everything, but it's just it's just weird. Like, oh, I guess we got to go into the movies. No, nothing's telling us to, but I guess it's what we got to do, right? All right, let's go into the movies.
Is it kind of like an alternate dimension type thing? Like because it has all three Persona, all three, the 3, 4, and 5 casts, right?
Yeah, but the game focuses mainly on the 5 cast.
Makes sense.
There's like I'm only like part way into the second movie, so I haven't encountered anybody else yet. But the only other character that has appeared so far is the Persona 3 female protagonist. She's the only other character from the other 2 series that has appeared so far. And
Interesting. Okay.
You have the entire Persona 5 cast already in. Like, well, I just got Haru and Makoto because at the beginning of this movie they get captured by Kamoshida. My guess is because they have nuclear inside and you can't have those skills early on. That's probably what it is. But
thanks. That's one way to balance it out.
Disrespecting Haru again by giving her less playtime again.
God, doing my girl dirty here.
Yeah, I know. But I imagine the other.
Sorry, is she from 5 or what is she from? Because I'm not familiar with like any.
Haru was
stuff.
from 5. Yeah, she's one of the last party members to join up with you, so she has less screen time than the other ones in the main game.
But she's all kinds of rad.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I love her. I think yeah, like I was hoping that they'd have her in here more, but she just captured the beginning. It's like, man, I want to play as Haru more. I'm really hoping Persona 5 Royal just gives us more time with Haru. It's just probably not gonna happen, but I can dream.
Yeah, if they're expanding on the third act in Royal, then maybe we'll get a little bit more of her. I would like that.
Well, did they get any DLC for Persona 5?
Not story DLC.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, like costumes and stuff
Costumes
like that.
that you get
that's
personas from previous games.
Yeah.
I think that was it in terms of DLC for Persona 5.
Yeah.
Gotcha, so this could be the opportunity for them to expand on that, and then maybe give Haru, was it? Some more time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's hoping.
Oh, thing. Like, because she basically comes in, was it, like, 2/3 of the way through the game, which is super late in Persona terms.
Just how long is this game going to be? I mean, man.
Yeah,
Persona 5 has already took me like 95 hours, I think. It's so long.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I wonder
Cap it
if
out at 100.
Like, well, actually, I think I'm capped out at like 100, 110.
Yeah.
If it's anything like Golden, they'll probably make a few modifications to speed things up a bit. But
Yeah.
Maybe just send you straight to sleep and say having Morgana tell you to go to sleep, but that'll speed things up a bit.
Yeah.
going back to Persona Q2 though, in the original that you got to pick which cast you started out with, I think. I'm guessing that's no longer the case here.
It's not the case here. Persona Q2 automatically starts you off with a Persona 5 cast.
I was just curious.
They're just trying to
Yeah,
keep that
the
train rolling.
focus is primarily on them. Like I said, the other cast, only one person from the other game has shown up at all. So I'm pretty,
Okay.
unless they do like a whole like, oh, we captured the Phantom Thieves, and you have to play as the rest of them, as the like Persona 3 or Persona 4 cast. I think the focus is going to be on Persona 5.
It makes sense, though. They're just trying to keep pushing their latest horse, so to speak. So
True. And plus Persona Q was already focused on 3 and 4, so I guess they decided, okay, since we're making a sequel, it should be focused on Persona 5.
So you said you weren't too far through it just yet. About how much more do you think? Like, are you about halfway through? Where are you at, do you feel?
I think there's 4 movies in total, so about a quarter of the way through. I believe.
Okay,
Like
that
I
makes
said,
sense.
That is going by standard. Of course, there could always be like, oh, there's a secret 5th movie, and then go through the final movie. Who knows? It could be something like that.
Is it clear at all why Joe, I guess, is it clear why they've locked you in, or why he's throwing you into these movies?
No, it hasn't been made clear. It's just you just need you found that's the way out. So now the cast goes through the movies and tries to get, I don't know, tries to get out. But they never explain how you even got there in the first place. So it's probably something that happens around like halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way through the game. They'll explain like how this is all happening.
Or it'll just be like Super Mario 2 style, where the end of it all will be just a dream. You fell asleep during a movie. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that was it.
That would be pretty silly, but totally could see it happening.
Show of hands, who's fallen asleep at a movie in a movie theater here?
Oh, I have.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Like midnight showings? Absolutely.
What movie was it, sorry?
A bunch of movies. I've done it a lot.
Oh my gosh. Peter, sorry.
No, I can't say that I have. When I go to a movie, I'm kind of there for it, There's probably when I was younger though.
That's fair.
Yeah, as for me, I almost fell asleep during Your Name, but not because Your Name was boring, but it's because I had exam that morning, and then I went to the movie straight after that. So I only got maybe like 4 hours of sleep. So it wasn't because Your Name was boring. It was just because I was just really tired.
Yeah, I've been there where I've almost nodded off, less because I was really bored, but because I was just so tired, and it depends on the movie too. It can just really lull you. I find I had that a lot with theater. If I'm seeing live theater, it can knock me right out, and it's not because anybody's performances are not engaging, because often the theater I'm seeing is good stuff. I've chosen to go see it for a reason, but it's just such a calm, intimate, relaxed environment more often than not, depending on the nature of the play, of course, that I just find myself just start getting like lulled down while I listen to the melody of the voice and everything. There's no like backing track of music to like heighten you or anything, so it's so interesting. And I often feel guilty, but I'm just like, I'm comfortable here, But yeah, I haven't fallen asleep at a film in a theater. It's interesting.
I don't know. Do you guys go? This is off topic, but do you guys go to movies in groups, or have you gone by yourselves? Because I usually am with like a group of friends. So
usually with at least one other person. I don't think I've ever seen a movie yet by myself.
Yeah, same here. Usually it's with my family, but other than that, I've seen a couple movies with friends, but I've never gone to a movie alone. Actually, no, sorry, scratch that. I was alone during Your Name. Never mind.
And it's the one you fell asleep.
Maybe.
Oh, I've gone to a number of movies alone, but it doesn't really matter. Usually, if I'm going to the movie too late, I'm going to fall asleep. Like I fell asleep during like the last hour of Avengers, for example. So
Yeah.
it certainly wasn't because it was boring.
Zach, are you secretly a 75-year-old man?
Not secretly.
The new oldest staff member at RPG Fan is Zach. He wins.
Best movie screening I've gone to recently though was when Darren Aronofsky's Mother came out, and it was just me and my two buddies in the theater, so we got to like play off each other the whole time because we weren't bothering anybody, so we could like talk and react in real time, like what the heck
Just heckle it
happening?
That's a good movie to do that too.
Very much so. I think it helped me process it a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a weird one.
It was a very weird one, but I would highly recommend it, dear listeners.
You know, I liked it.
Yeah, I think last year was the first time I've ever been to a movie theater like where we were just the only people in it. Where it was just the three of us watching this like movie that we're like Gwen Shoes, and it was something about dragons. And when we got there, it was like, oh, this has a whole lot of allegory. I see why nobody else is here. It's got heavy Christian overtones, and that's Jesus Dragon. Okay. It was a cool movie, and it was a good way to tell these stories, and it was engaging in its way, but it was just like, it looked like a cheaper kind of flash cartoon sort of thing in terms of like, that you would see on TV, not quite like polished enough for feature film, but it was still engaging. She enjoyed it. That's all that matters. But it was just really bizarre, like just the three of us being in this huge theater with nobody else. Yeah.
Funny enough, that actually happened with my family during The Last Jedi. For whatever reason, the theater was completely empty. So we're like, cool,
somehow everybody had seen it already.
Yeah, probably. That's probably the case.
But anyway, back on topic. Persona Q2. Any other final thoughts on it? Or we press on to the next JRPG on the list?
I'll probably still play it on occasion. Like it's found, like I said, for some reason, like I'm attached to this game, even though like my past video game history says I shouldn't be. So I'll probably end up pressing on with it, especially because I enjoy the Persona 5 cast a lot. There are so many other games to play though, my god, and I still like have to do my own reviews too. So it's on the back burner for now, but I'll be back.
And that's totally fair, yeah, because the Persona Q2 review that we did have was done by Joe, hence why he was super stoked to be on here. So we'll probably get Joe on the episode soon enough, and he can get a lot more into it, but he gave it a pretty great score, so he's enjoying it. And if his review is any indication, yeah, once you finally get through it, Nathan, I'm sure you'll find a lot to love about it.
Yeah, I'm already liking it a lot, which is, like I said, quite a bit to say for a genre I don't usually like.
I don't know, the cute little chibi change up on the figures is really adorable.
Yeah, I like it.
But other JRPGs that I had hinted at was an oldie but a goodie. Back in January of 2017, Tales of Berseria came out, and Peter, have you been playing it since, or did you just dive into it recently?
Just diving into it recently. I haven't really played any of the Tales games all that much before now. For something about them kind of didn't appeal to me, at least at first blush, and my limited experience with playing Excelia did not end positively. I was just like, yeah, this is bad. Next. Tales of Arise was announced at this year's E3, and it looks so freaking good. Like, that Agreed. I was like, yeah, like, it just looks super hype, and it was like such an evolution for this series. That, like, okay, this looks like something I want to play. I should probably get caught up on this series. So I was looking up, like, okay, which recent Tales games are the good ones, and the two that keep coming up are Vesperia Definitive Edition, which I will get to at some point, and Berseria. And I had a $10 GameStop coupon, and Berseria was the one that I found. So there we go. Long story short, playing it so far, I am really enjoying it, and I'm pleasantly surprised to be doing so. It is a very fun action RPG. With a lot of, like, you know, it's got a lot of JRPG tropes. The action-focused combat system that's pretty standard for the Tales series, from what I understand, where you kind of string together different attack moves into big combo chains, kind of like a fighting game. The Berseria is notable because it has a female lead, Velvet, who, so far I really like her. She's a really interesting character. Her vocal performance is really sharp. And then this other cast of ne'er-do-wells who are all... Basically everyone in the main cast wants revenge for a reason or another, or they're trying to find somebody or hunt something down. There's kind of a unified theme to it. And they're not your typical cast of JRPG heroes. You got like kind of a ditzy witch girl who's hilarious, Magilu. She's the best.
Magilu's the best.
She's so funny. Like
yeah, she's hilarious.
I'm still only like, I just got to like the capital city, so she hasn't been playable yet. But like even just her banter, I'm like already here for it.
She's the best in battle too, I think.
Yeah. Velvet herself is like, she's trying to get revenge on the guy who killed her brother, and she's been possessed, like kind of possessed almost. So she has this like demon arm you can use in battle, and that's super fun. You have a pirate dude who's like cursed with bad luck, and he's fun. There's this kind of easygoing samurai demon dude who's got a sword he won't draw, so I'm really curious what that's all about. In general, just the cast is super likable so far.
Anime as heck.
It is anime as all heck.
Yep.
But the characters in this one are likable enough. That was my big problem with Excelia when I played it, is that I did not like the characters. I mean, I didn't like the main characters, at least from first impressions. Whereas this cast, I'm like already like, okay, I see their banter, I see the reasons why they want to band together and go out their business. It's kind of a different kind of plot for a JRPG. At least so far, like it's not like they're not like chosen heroes going out. No, this girl wants to murder somebody. I'm here for that.
I mean, they're generally like not very good people.
Yeah.
I mean, the main cast. That's what makes them so fascinating, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very different cast for a JRPG, and I really appreciate that. And the combat system, I don't think I fully quite understand all the ins and outs of it yet. Again, I haven't really played a Tales game very far up until this point, so it's like some of the stuff about like chaining arts together and using mystic arts and all that, like your special attacks and all this stuff is a little confusing. But feel like I'm getting the hang of it. Your number of attacks you can perform is kind of controlled by a meter that builds up, that drains as you use abilities, but builds as you defeat enemies or land a status element on them. So basically it rewards you for playing well, and then you can string together more powerful attacks. So it's kind of a give and take.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the most helpful thing with that game for me was just like sort of giving like different loadouts to Velvet depending on the weaknesses of the enemy, and if you hit them, and if you use her break soul, it's totally broken. If you just like abuse that over and over and over again, it makes the game actually pretty easy. I played it on hard and I had very little difficulty with it. But yeah, if you just for me, like setting up the face buttons for like different types of combos was really what made the combat really kind of work well in that game for me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing, is like ending. I have like the same basic martial arts combo for the first few hits, and then it ends on a different hidden art.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun system. And Velvet, it's that her break soul ability where she like uses her demon arm and she unleashes a different attack depending on the weakness of the enemy you're fighting is super useful, and I've been doing it a lot. I haven't really played as the other characters. I know that's like a thing in this series, but I also usually tend to play as the main characters in most games anyway, so I don't know. Maybe I'll try to branch out and play as a few other ones. I don't know. Velvet is doing the trick so far.
She's the easiest one to control, and she's also the most powerful when you control yourself. So
is that pretty stable for the Tales games, that you can swap in and out your main character kind of thing, who you're controlling?
Yeah, sometimes it's like a skill or an ability that you have to like earn, that you can sort of flop between characters really quickly and easily. But for the most part, yeah, it's sort of a thing that people like to master different characters and sort of figure out who they like to play the best.
Well, that's kind of neat, I guess. And we do
have
we've had those games before, obviously, where we can swap in and out. But I just didn't know that was part of this series as well. That's kind of I assumed it was just your classic. Here's your party, go. But again, I admit I am very unfamiliar with Tales. I have yet to dive into really any of them, and I have been woefully reprimanded since coming here and admitting to it.
I think Berseria is as good a gateway drug as any, because it's especially now that like I think the thing of it is that for a while their Tales was a yearly series and they were kind of starting to rush the games. This might come up later in conversation too, actually. With Berseria, I'm pretty sure they took a year off for that one in between Zestiria, which was not as well received.
Yeah.
Now Arise is switching to a new engine. It's the first one developed for modern consoles, because Berseria was originally a PS3 game in Japan. or was developed with the PS3 in mind, at least.
It still looks good.
It does look good. It does look good.
Not nearly as good as Arise, although the people who are saying that Arise does not look good, I've heard this, like, oh, it doesn't look anime enough or something. I mean, have you seen the screens? Look at it.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. Arise looks incredible.
You need to look at people. I think people are looking at those like leaked screenshots and being like,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, toning down the anime is not really a problem for me.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, it looks anime as heck. The character designs especially.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's the internet. People want to whine about stuff.
Generally. Which also may come up in conversation later.
Yeah, foreshadowing. I like it. In general, Berseria is anime as all crap, but I'm really digging on it so far. So
Yeah. Story gets even better as it goes, too. So
that's
I think
good to
you'll
hear.
like it.
Yeah, I'm already like more invested in this cast because, like, I mean, we have I'll get into too many specifics. There's a character who looks a lot like the dead brother, and I'm very intrigued about where that goes because they seem to have a pretty good connection going with Velvet.
I just can't get over the name Velvet half the time. It just
Yeah,
sounds so...
she sounds like a David Eddings character, but
Yeah. Just like this emo, dark...
Oh,
I'm Velvet.
that's actually pretty much who she is, actually.
she is basically the big titty anime goth GF.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh, also, costumes are the best, and I love games that let you customize the character's looks. So naturally, I have given the samurai man a 10-gallon hat, and Velvet has glasses, which actually looks really cute on her.
I didn't know they had that flexibility. Like, we covered it a bit when we were briefly doing the Stay in Gaming stuff last winter. And, yeah, it had its anniversary come up, so we covered it. And it looked really flashy and neat. But, yeah, they were just keeping her as the basic model, so I didn't realize it had customizability for... Is it just her or all of them?
All of them.
Their costumes, yeah, that's kind of another series hallmark from what I understand, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You can customize, you can give them new costumes, little accessories. There's a lot of costume DLC for this game, which I'm probably not going to go that far. Although, I'm tempted by that pirate outfit. Yeah, for people who are really into that sort of thing, like Bandai Namco has sort of found their niche with that because they have a whole bunch of costume DLC accessories for the characters. There are these little treasure chests you can find in the game that pretty much exclusively just dole out fashion accessories. You have to collect items in the environment and then pay a certain amount to open these chests. But those items are plentiful and they respawn, so it's not like you're ever... I feel like I am in no danger of running out. Like, the price to open one of these boxes is like 30 of these little doohickeys, and I have like 200, so...
Eventually you start running low, but yes. Early
Eventually?
on, they're
Okay.
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, early on, it's like, okay, well, this is overkill almost. But,
Yeah.
You can upgrade your equipment, which is also fun. That's another system that I find enjoyable in games, too, because I'm the kind of, like... I'm very, like, what's the word? I don't want to, kind of anal retentive about my equipment loadouts in games. I really like to tinker with equipment setups and upgrade materials and all that stuff. So it's a pretty basic system in Berseria. You know, you spend resources to make your weapons stronger, but I like having a bunch of +1, +2, +3 gear equipped. So,
and one of the other cool things is that you can you get like stat upgrades for having equipment on for so long or using it so many times, sort of like Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, it's got Final Fantasy 9. It's got the same ability system.
Yeah.
So the longer you have something equipped, eventually you'll master a skill attached to it, and you just get to keep that skill.
Yep.
I really dig that system. It was really neat to revisit when I was doing my review of Final Fantasy 9, and I forgot how much I enjoyed that. And they kind of had that in Tactics Advance too, didn't they?
Yeah,
if I recall.
And Tactics Advance, and I think Lost Odyssey had it too with the rings.
I never played Lost Odyssey, but I didn't realize it. That's cool.
Oh yeah, Lost Odyssey's dope.
That was PSP or was it
360?
No, Lost Odyssey was on the
360,
360. Yeah. That was one of the only ones there.
360 exclusive. I'm okay. This is another off-topic thing, but I got to make this tangent. Microsoft, hi, this is me. You don't know me, but you're not doing anything with that license. Can you please like loosen your grip on it a bit? Like maybe let them port it to Switch, please.
Well, yeah, we just got like The Last Remnant, which was also on Xbox, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Square went through this big when the Xbox was like out. They went through this big phase of making games for them, and then Mistwalker had an exclusivity deal with Microsoft for a bunch of games that fell. But like I think the deal fell off after Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon because they had a canceled project too.
There's so much cross sort of like working together between Microsoft and Nintendo now. I think it's possible, but I also think it's probably pretty niche. Like, I'm not sure, if they're going to put the work in and effort into porting it, but I'd like them to because it's a good game.
I would love it with like the interest in Japanese games. I would like, and even if it is just something as simple as like Xbox Game Pass now on Nintendo Switch for some reason.
Yeah,
weirder things have happened, and it is backwards compatible on Xbox One.
Right, that's where I played it. Yep.
The problem is that the problem is that
you have to own an Xbox One. Not many people do. Yes, I know.
I did for a time, but then I was unemployed, and long story.
It's mostly a media streamer for me now.
Yeah, maybe we'll go to PC then. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? That actually seems more probable. But anyway, that was a whole long tangent that amounts to basically JRPGs are fun, and Tales of Berseria is a fun JRPG, so y'all should play it.
And you're looking good too, Tales of Arise.
And Tales of Arise has got me all sorts of hyped.
Now, didn't we talk about Berseria, or Tales in general, how they all had ridiculous made-up combat system names or something?
Yeah.
What was it in Berseria again?
Okay, so Tales of Berseria is known as the Liberation Linear Motion Battle System.
Liberation Linear Motion Battle System, LLMBS?
Yep.
Okay. And I guess just because the liberation mean like you can move freely around in combat and stuff?
Yep. It which is not entirely new for Tales, but you do have a bit more freedom of movement in this one from what it feels like. And it's also, you can map things out to the different face buttons. I think that's the big change, right?
It is, yeah. They started in Dysteria as well, but yeah.
I wonder if we'll get now in the next one linear open world motion battle system or something ridiculous, since I'm guessing they're going to expand on the freedom.
The one from Zestiria is called the Fusionic Chain Linear Motion Battle System, which sounds like a freaking Yu-Gi-Oh card. So,
yep.
Who knows what we'll get in Arise. So you're looking forward to Arise. Zach and Nathan, you've both played through Tales stuff as well. Are you also looking forward to Arise?
Oh, yeah. It looks amazing.
New games that you'll keep up on and when they drop?
Absolutely.
Eventually?
Yeah.
Did it get a release date at all teased?
Next year.
I believe so.
So maybe it'll be March like everything else?
Oh, that's going to be a dangerous month.
It is indeed.
I'm just wondering if it'll be like PS5 or whatever next X or Project Scarlet. Because
they've already said it's PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Okay, they've already said that. Okay, it just
It
just feels like this is going in such a new direction with the visuals. I feel like it should have, well, not should have been, but it just feels like a game that's for next gen.
Yeah, it's on Unreal Engine 4. I think it's their first time working with that engine. So maybe it'll get a port, because I mean they did that with Berseria. It was like a multi-generation thing.
They might have an up-res version, on the back burner as well. A la Twilight Princess.
Yeah, we don't know what they're doing. That's the thing.
Systems.
We don't really know what they're doing when Project Scarlet and the PS5 when they're going to come out.
So this could be a next summer release for all we know, just to get it out the door before the holidays and the new systems come out and stuff, maybe. At any rate, switching tones, Judgment came out last year in Japan, dropped June 25th, which is today as of this recording.
It is.
We're recording it the day Judgment came out, and Zach, you've been playing it. Are you playing it for review?
Yeah. My review will be posted by the time the podcast goes up. It's going to get posted today.
So go check that out.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Overall, I liked it. I've never finished another Yakuza game. I've played a couple of them, like Yakuza 0. I've played a little bit of, and I've sort of toyed around with some of the Kiwami games. But overall, it plays. Those of you who aren't familiar, it's a spin-off of the Yakuza series. It still takes place in Kamurocho, which is good because it's a really delightful town to sort of mess around in. But this one follows a guy who's a lawyer in Kamurocho, and he gets a guy off for murder. And then a month after he gets the guy off for murder, the guy murders his girlfriend and burns his house down. And so he's disgraced and he's sort of racked with guilt. And so he becomes a private investigator who is looking around Kamurocho, and he eventually is hired to defend a local Yakuza captain for murder, and sort of find evidence for that. And sort of along the way, he gets embroiled in this serial killer thing, and he's sort of tasked with locating who this serial killer is, and it becomes this big giant conspiracy. And the game starts out really well in terms of the story. It's really engaging early on. The mysteries are really cool. You sort of really feel like a detective as you're gathering evidence and presenting evidence. But then, like, in the second half, it gets a little bit slow, and they keep repeating things over and over again, and I, like, totally figured out a lot of the mysteries way before the private investigators did, which sort of took away from some of the credibility of the game and sort of the narrative. But it starts off really well. But otherwise, it's a Yakuza game through and through. The combat's the same. The side stories are, like, really engaging. There's a lot of really cool mini games that you can play around town. It's just a total blast to play. And so overall, I thought it was a really fun experience.
Is this a good jumping in point if you haven't played any of the Yakuzas?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if they have any references to previous Yakuza games because I haven't played enough of them to really know, but if there were, I didn't notice. It totally stands on its own as a story.
Okay, good. That's
Absolutely.
Good to know because I've been curious about this series. You know, there are a lot of people I know who are really into them, but it's one of those things.
I mean, the things that were best about this game are the things that come totally from Yakuza. The things that weren't as effective are like you have like these tail missions where like you have to follow people around town. They're really boring after a while. They're like these point and click almost adventure things where you have to like scan an area to try to find the evidence, and it's just really annoying because you just kind of have to wait until you hover over the right thing. So I would probably recommend starting with like Yakuza 0. Everyone always tells me that's a really good one to start with, but I know the combat is cleaner here. So like I said, all the Yakuza stuff is really what works the best here, and I'm hoping that if they continue this series, they refine some of the detective elements to make them less boring, to be honest.
I gotcha.
Do you ever have to go to court?
You do. I won't say too much about that because there's some spoilers involved there. But early on, you spend some time in court, and then later in the game, you spend time in court as well. There's a little bit of Ace Attorney here as well, for sure. They make some kind of subtle references to it. So if you're into Ace Attorney, there's definitely a little bit of that too, with like the pointing and yelling objection. It's fun.
Does the gameplay change in any way? Like, is it its own mini game in the law scenes?
You're just presenting evidence when that happens. Like, you'll just like select the right sort of like dialogue from the tree for like what proves the point you're trying to make. And again, it doesn't ever require you to put the pieces together yourself. It just does it ad nauseum by sort of like shouting it at you over and over again in the game, and you just have to remember what the right thing was. It really doesn't require much thought, which again was sort of one of my criticisms of the game, which you can read in my review.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
How is the Pierre Taki stand-in?
It's funny because I didn't notice. I think they actually didn't use a stand-in. They just actually like created like original model for that character.
Okay.
It's a pretty major character. It's like actually the Yakuza captain who was accused of murder at the very beginning, who you have to find evidence for to defend. But it looks pretty similar to the Taki model or the Taki character model. But I wouldn't have noticed. I actually didn't know which one it was until after I finished the game, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that controversy. I'll go Google it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't have known otherwise.
For context, listeners, Pierre Taki is one of the actors. He was in Judgment. He was a pretty famous Japanese actor. He was in Shin Godzilla. He did the voice of Olaf in Disney stuff. But he did some Nose Candy, and that's a no-no in Japan. So now he's been kind of pulled from everything.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Was it a couple months back now?
Yeah, he got dubbed out of Kingdom Hearts 3, got kicked off Frozen 2, he's in jail. Yikes.
I mean, I think they just re-released it in Japan. Like, they pulled it from the shelves in Japan until it could replace the model.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, they did.
It was,
that was a thing.
It was a deal. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't noticeable, honestly. Like I said, I didn't even know which character it was until I finished the game and Googled it.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah.
Worked out. Just a strange situation.
It is. It's a little bit of an over-the-top reaction, if you ask me, but that's just me.
Yeah, it's like this weird, bizarre, like, sense of this person out of life forever.
Right.
Yeah, Japan takes that stuff seriously, though. This isn't even the first time this has happened to Yakuza. It happened to, I think, Yakuza 4, 5, one of them. When it got re-released, they edited out an actor as well.
It's nice that they take a hard line and let people know they mean business in general, like for all these companies, that this sort of stuff isn't going to be just overlooked with they're famous, you know. Like,
yeah.
It hits everybody, which is important to show that accountability to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are you always going to keep going with the Yakuza series yourself, Zach? Or are you going to go back now that you've gotten through this one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have Yakuza 0 sort of sitting on my shelf. I've put maybe 5 or 7 hours into it, and I liked it, but as Nathan pointed out earlier. So many games, so little time, have things to review, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan has been reviewing them, and I've been sort of like looking through those, and it's been hyping me up for trying to give it a shot. And again, I actually think the things that were best about Judgment were the things that were the most Yakuza, so that makes me more hyped to play a Yakuza game all the way through.
Well, in a complete shift of things, going from Judgment and Law, we go to ambassadorial proceedings and Citizens of Space, which I've been playing for review as well. That just came out on June 18th for I think PS4 and for Windows. I don't think it's on anything else yet, but again, I won't be shocked if it makes an announcement to come to even Xbox or to the Switch sometime in the next year. Maybe it is already on the Xbox. I'm not certain. That would not be surprising considering it's on Windows. But anyhow, I don't know companies. But Citizens of Space is the sequel to Citizens of Earth, which was a really nice take on kind of like the Earthbound system in a lot of how it looked and felt, and was very much an homage to that, and still very much a JRPG. Combat system has since changed up, though. It doesn't have that kind of classic Earthbound look now. It's more side to side. So you have your whole party on the left, enemy party on the right. You can swap in and out your citizens as you gain them and go into battle. And then when you're not in battle, you've got your character who's the ambassador of Earth, who is just very excited to be an ambassador. And when you arrive on the Galactic Federation, kind of not necessarily a home planet, but like a space station, which is in this case not founded by Earth. Like, this is one of the first, I guess, sci-fi bits I've seen in a long time where Earth isn't, quote-unquote, the center of the universe. You know, where we're not the founding fathers of universal unity. We're apparently a newer race to this whole Galactic Federation, and thus not taken very seriously. No one even knows really what Earth is, and they keep calling it Earth. So we're just some sort of backwater planet that no one cares about. And so when you show up as the ambassador to get kind of sworn in as an official ambassador for Earth, it turns out that Earth has gone missing, which also adds to the fact that why nobody knows about it, because since you've been in transit, it has vanished somehow. So then it becomes clear that if you want to be an ambassador for Earth, you need to go find Earth so you can be an ambassador. Otherwise, what are you supposed to ambass for? So you have your assistant, who's your first kind of citizen that you bring on board. And you essentially are now free to go out and start finding other citizens to help you find Earth bit by bit. And it plays very similar to the first one, where you have to wander around the map, you get your party. In this one, your party doesn't follow you around like they did in the last one, it's just you. And everything is managed through the menus, which are all pretty streamlined. Like, each has subsections, which can get a little clunky. I always find that hard with menu systems, where it's like L2, L3 swaps between them, and then there's like sub-menus with L1 and L2 and stuff. You get R1, L1, R2, L2, sorry, is what I was meant to see, and you're just like, which one am I? I went to the wrong menu, and I gotta go back and, I don't know what, I'm an old gamer or something. Too many buttons, but it definitely psychs me out sometimes, and I get lost with what I'm doing. And then especially when you're doing citizen management, because then once you go to the citizen management page and you get more of those, to open up they each have their own individual pages. So like you have like your roster of them, and then you highlight one, and then you can check out what their talent is. By pressing one button, you can open up for your battle citizens, who are the ones you use in combat. You can open up their stats, which is where you can do all the inventory stuff, and then you can pair them up with a partner citizen. And so it gets to be, you kind of go down this rabbit hole of a bunch of little intricate button presses to get into all the different submenus, and it can be a lot once you start getting more. So at face value, it seemed pretty simple, but now that I've got more citizens to manage, I've been like, what? It's easy to get lost and forget who does what, and yada yada yada. Because you have now 3 different types of citizens, because I think in the last one they were all combat. I didn't play it, and I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read Neil Chandran's review of it. But in this one, now you have like a set number of battle citizens. I think there's 9 of them. No, 12, I think. And then you get summon citizens, which your ambassador, who's never in battle, he just sits back and basically tells everybody what to do. But he gets his charisma. Exactly. But he has his charisma rating, his like leadership kind of thing, from 0 to 100, and with that you can at any point hit L1 and toggle him out so he can use items to heal people, and he can summon citizens, and he can also enact policies. And policies are fun because they affect everybody in the battle, so it can be like a policy where everybody does less damage, or a policy where everybody gets this or that. The only one I've got right now is where I can make it so everyone does less damage and has less chances for critical hits, so it's just like a rebalancing for some weird reason. And I have one where he can just enact that party member switch. So that's all I've got at the moment, but I think I'll get more as I go on through the story. But the other one is, he can summon various citizens that you've discovered, so like your spaceship can like shoot them, you can get this mole guy who throws rocks at people, or you can get someone that will come and just like heal the whole party, but it'll cost you like your entire bar, so they're very powerful. But over time, as you go back into fights and do actions and stuff, it builds up sort of like a limit break bar, except that you can spend it however much you wish at a time. So I thought that was kind of neat to make him feel involved, and also they definitely don't hesitate to play up the fact that he's just an ambassador who doesn't like to get his hands dirty, and anytime he does say like, oh, I'll help you do this thing by telling you what to do, and stuff like that. It's very cheeky in that regard. And then the other citizens you get are the partner ones, who you can essentially tack onto one of your battle citizens, so it will boost their stats and then give you an additional set of skills that you can call upon if you have that specific one tied to whomever. So you end up having a lot of options in combat. And at first, when I had my core party of like 3 people that I found and I was starting to get to know them, that was all right. But now that I've started to get more and more and more, it's getting a little complicated, more than it probably should be for this game, because each different person has a complete different mechanic basically for how their battle stuff works. So like you've got your classic guy, the first person you get at the gate is just the captain, who's the captain of the ship. He's your old pirate yo-ho-ho guy. He's got a clamp for an arm and a peg leg and a parrot on his shoulder. He's pretty typical piratey kind of captain guy, except in space. And he just essentially punches stuff. He can punch stuff and he can reduce their defense. He can punch stuff and steal hit points. He's got a few boost things because he's got the ability to hit somebody. He's got the ability to hit them really hard, or he's got commands that are more party buffs. So everyone has like an up, left, right, down kind of window to access a whole bunch of different skills. And as I'm describing this, I'm like, this sounds complicated. And again, at face value, it looks like it, but once you get into 12 different characters who all have 4 different windows with 4 different types of like action types, and then within those action types, then there's like 3 or 4 different types of actions, you go down this big rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, now I have to relearn a whole new character and all 12 of their new abilities or whatever it is that is coming up. It can be a lot, and then I found myself just being like, I know how these 4 work, I'm just going to use them. So it is neat that it gives you all this flexibility and you can play around a lot, but it is also very overwhelming at times. And I mean, again, you can see where the roots come back to something like Earthbound. Each character handled kind of differently in Earthbound, if I recall. It's been a long time, but like they all have their kind of different sort of powers and abilities, where like Ness, was pretty straightforward, hit things, use psychic abilities. And then Paula had her like prey thing. Wasn't that? Who here's played Earthbound and knows better than me?
I can't remember, it's been a while.
Right? But they all kind of had like their own little secondary ability that kind of made them stand out from everybody else, but then they kind of had their basic whatever.
Like Jeff had bottle rockets, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think Pooh had his, whatever his monk ability was. So like they all kind of had a little thing that made them unique, but they were still rooted very much the same. Whereas in this one, like even people with their basic abilities are like wildly different. So it can get a little like, all over the place when it comes to it. But it makes the combat fun because also each and every one of them has their own mini games. So it's not simple like just hit a command and attack. You'll have to hit a command and be like, and then it'll prompt you like mash the button to, the better you do at the mini game, the better damage will be done, or the longer a boost will last, or whatever. And again, that makes it very engaging and fun and keeps you on your toes. And it's very much like Mario and Luigi Superstar Story or stuff like that, where you're constantly interacting with the combat system. But again, once you start getting more and more characters and each single one of them has a different mini game for how you do the thing, it can get very overly complex, trying to remember how to each game masters, keeping track of it all, and learning the new mini games. And plus, again, they just kind of slow down the whole system when you have to mini game every single fight. Thankfully, fights don't have to be all that frequent when your citizens has the power to alter encounter rates, so you can slow it down. And I find the level of enemies is kind of a bit all over the place, but because you can go wherever you want almost out of the gate within reason, so sometimes you might run into tougher stuff, but generally if you're playing the game in line with the story, I find it so far pretty easy. So you won't find it too much of a struggle, and you won't feel the need to grind for very much. You can definitely tone it down pretty easy, but even then, when you're in heavy combat stuff, it can really drag it out when you're just doing like, alright, I gotta do like 6 different mini games in order to finish this fight, and get a little old fast.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
And I get it, like I love that they were trying to innovate the JRPG game system by like breathing new life and making it more interactive and making everything in kind of a QTE, but it's just like, you know, do it kind of like how Mario and Luigi did, where there's like a few minigames. There's like 3 or 4 kind of quote unquote what you would call a minigame, you know? It's just like toggle a button press to get a critical hit at the right time, you know, and then that's about it. Yeah. They have a couple of ones, like the ones I think are neat, like, yeah, the button mash one where the button changes all the time, although someone should tell somebody that button mashing the triggers is not what they're meant for, and it's super annoying and hard.
Yeah, I know, 100%.
And then like, they'll have other ones where it's like they'll have a bar come up that you have to hold the button down and charge it, but it's the kind of thing that if you overcharge, it'll blow out and you'll miss, so you kind of have to like let go at the right time. That stuff's kind of neat, and again, it's quick enough that it's interactive. And there's other ones where they'll show you a sequence and be like, remember the sequence, and then it'll hide them, and then you kind of have to, Simon Says, remember what those 4 buttons were or 5 buttons were. Kind of a la like Sabin's combos and stuff. So like that stuff's kind of neat, and I like those. But once they start getting into all these complex ones of like you have to like shoot the moving things on the screen, or this thing will beat to the rhythm, and I can never figure out the rhythm because I don't know, is it the rhythm to the battle music, or the game have its own rhythm? Like,
yeah, that
stuff
sounds
like this.
That sounds almost like just a little too much to keep track of.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? And like at first when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, it seems pretty simple, but as I start talking more about it, I'm just like, no, there's a lot. And I have processed a lot over these past like 5-6 days that I've been playing it, clearly. And it's hard too. There's days where sometimes you just want to hit the button and make the guy attack a thing.
Yeah.
So that's, again, it kind of overstays its welcome, as the first one was kind of guilty of as well. But the charm in this one is definitely in like the world and the writing and stuff. Like, it's a really pretty looking game in terms of its presentation for what it is. Like, it's very Saturday morning cartoon, but everything's very polished looking. It definitely has a few little glitches here and there that I've run into for just how you interact with things, or how like the story kind of happens. Like at the beginning, where you're supposed to go into the assembly to be like, hey, I'm the new ambassador, and they're like, cool, Earth is missing. But in the meantime, I started talking to people or talking to citizens that I was able to recruit, and I was like, I need to recruit you because Earth is missing. And I was like, wait, what? Earth is missing? What's happening? No one told me this. And then when I actually got to the story moment where he was told Earth was missing, I was like, what? Earth is missing? So it seemed like they didn't have a trigger in place to like not limit the fact that people should be talking about Earth is missing until after you've learned about it, kind of thing, or that you should not be able to recruit anybody until after you've gone to the assembly. So there's a bunch of stuff that like it reveals story moments before the characters actually know the story has happened. So that was a little weird off the top.
That's weird, like a flag wasn't programmed or something.
Exactly, right? Like I put it to like my vague knowledge of RPG Maker, and that, you know, you trip a flag that once that trigger is triggered, then everybody knows what you know, so to speak, right? Yeah, it just seems like something wasn't flagged right or whatever. And there's a few little moments like that, or, yeah, where something doesn't kind of flag out right and whatever. I've also had this one weird error in battle where my bottom, because you have 3 party members, and then behind them you can position essentially like the reserve fighters. They can only swap in with people in their in their row. But the bottom row person, I've had them get knocked out, and then they get replaced, and then that person's turn never comes up, no matter what. So then I'm just stuck doing this boss battle with only 2 characters for the rest of the battle. So that seems like a weird glitch as well. Even though the person's very much alive, then I will go and like maybe use a reviving thing to bring the other person back, hoping maybe that'll trigger it, or I'll swap them out. It doesn't do it. They stay as if they don't exist. Like they exist in, like, you can see the initiative bar up, so you can kind of plan out your turns, a la like Final Fantasy X and stuff like that. And you'll see them there, but then they'll slowly keep getting bumped down and then just stop existing. And I'm just like, what? I don't understand. So it definitely has its glitchiness, which again the first one was had a lot of problems with as well. So it's something Eden needs to kind of keep working at the old drawing board. But if they keep writing games this tight, like, it's full of great puns, the voice acting's stellar, the characters are all very charming and endearing, and it's a lot of fun to... Most of the stuff I've been grabbing screenshots from and remembering and enjoying is just the interactions between the characters and the development of the story, and how hapless and arrogant and out of it this silly ambassador is, and everyone else is basically trying to keep him on the straight and narrow of focusing on the task at hand instead of his own ego and stuff. It's all very funny and definitely doesn't hesitate to poke fun at RPG tropes and just the world in general and science fiction and stuff. So it knows what it is. It's having fun. It just has a lot of cracks in the seams on the outside, unfortunately, that stops it from being the most fun game to play as well as the most fun to read and listen to, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they plan on patching it or what, and if they do patch up some of these issues, I think it will be a really strong game, and I do recommend it if you like silly, goofy comedy of what it is. It's very cleverly written, kind of Saturday morning cartoon stuff. It's always nice when you walk into, what was the one? Oh yeah, one of the first places you get to where there's a switch puzzle to like go over to. It's like, this looks like one of those classic RPG puzzles, So they know what they're doing. But otherwise, we'll see how it gets to at the end. I have a bit more of Earth to find and a lot more story to go through, so I'm nowhere near the end of it. I feel like I'm maybe halfway through. I may have only found 25% of the Earth, but I don't know how much of that has a bearing on the actual progress through the game. So we shall see. And I've got lots of citizens to find still yet, and more worlds to discover. So it's pretty neat flying around space.
But do you only have 24 hours to save the Earth?
No, thankfully. I have as much time as I dang well please.
Good.
Because, like I said, you can go wherever you want. So even if it says you need to go here for, the main story purposes, you could go off to another planet if you wanted to. I just think the only complex part of it is that you may not have found somebody that you need to find to access certain parts or something like that. So that might hold you back. But there's not a ton of gatekeeping in it. Once you have a few citizens and you have access to a better spaceship, you can pretty much go wherever you want, which is kind of neat. But like I said, it seems like it runs into a bit of issues where it doesn't quite account for that. I don't know. It's strange. Yeah, have any of you played Citizens of Earth yourselves or seen anything about it? Back with Neil's review of it?
Only what I've covered for news. It's come up a couple times, but some of the screenshots look funny, but I don't think it's really my bag, so I haven't really paid much attention to it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Same here.
Yeah. Well, it plays like a JRPG, but it's definitely very stylized for what it is. So, but speaking of space RPGs, Super Neptunia, that takes place in space, doesn't it, Nathan?
All right, so Super Neptunia RPG. So what? As most of you know, I'm a big fan of the series. I'm probably one of the few on RPG fan who genuinely enjoys playing Neptunia games.
And they're in space too, right? I think.
They're in space. No, they're not always in space. They are in alternate dimensions.
Okay.
Every single game. That's the idea behind each series, that they go into different dimensions, usually with different eras of gaming. So I think the first and second game were modern times, and the third game they go back in the past and they meet the characters from the Genesis era and stuff like that. So there's the Genesis and the TurboGrafx 16 characters.
Gotcha. So I had a misconception. It's the Neptune part. Anyways, so what's Super Neptunia RPG like?
So this is the first game that was made outside of Comball Heart. So this is a game made by Canadian studio Artisan Studios. They're based in Quebec City, which, by the way, is a beautiful city. You should just visit sometime if you don't mind everyone speaking French.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Quebec City. It looks lovely, and it's nice and old since it's one of the earliest parts of Canada that were settled. But I have yet to go to Quebec City itself. Been to Montreal, but not Quebec City.
Quebec City is nice. It's got the nice historical district too, so you can like look at all like the old like 18th century like European like streets. It's really interesting. But anyway, back to Neptune RPG. So this is their first game. So they've made assets for other games. I can't quite remember what game they made, but I remember it was something that I recognized. So they've done that before, but this is their first time in charge of a game from start to finish. So this is their first attempt out. I guess I'll be a little bit nicer to them, but this is not a very good game. There's just a lot of design choices that I feel just don't make much sense. It just feels like they're trying to go for something else, and then some like I guess it must have been Compile Idea Factory stepped in and said, "Oh, we want to make this an RPG now, even though all the level design and everything makes it feel like an adventure game." So there's like the first area, there's a whole like and well throughout the game there's platforming elements. So they have all this area space designed for platforming. There's chests you can't reach. There's like these long jumps that they're harder to reach than I would like. But basically, there's all these like design elements around the world that's based on seems like an adventure game. It's like I feel like if they had made this like almost like a Metroidvania style, could have been pretty cool because Neptune's got like the cool like I don't know mention some reviews. It's kind of like a Strider kind of like attack on the overworld where she'll when she jumps in the air she can do like does it almost look like the Strider arc for the sword?
Oh,
So
cool.
I was thinking, man, if she had like a double jump or something and you just going around and just killed enemies that way, this could have been a really fun game. But unfortunately, it's not like that. So when you see enemies on the overworld, when you bump into them, you go into the standard, RPG battle. So and battle system is like I've never played Valkyrie Profile, but people said that's what it looks like, which is a formation style. So you have four characters in like a diamond formation, and each character has their own corresponding attack depending on which position they are in the formation. You can adjust it, of course, but the lead character will lead the formation and will decide like what kind of formation it is. So Neptune will be like the attacking formation, then the character Blonde, she'll be the healing formation. Then the others will like mix in like physical or magic attacks. That's basically what the formation is supposed to be. Um, my main issue with the game, especially the RPG part, is that it feels like I'm mashing buttons because basically like it's like an active turn-based system. So you have like an action gauge. So whenever you have your action come up, it'll take off points off of the gauge. So and especially when you encounter enemy weaknesses will add more points to your gauge. So say if you find enemy weakness, you'll attack. You'll automatically get 2 points back, which is enough you need to attack again. So sometimes I just find myself just mashing the attack button because once I found enemy weakness, I could just do that. Or like once I get other characters, I could add in other characters' attacks on top of it. So I guess it's like I kind of like the battle system in that way, in that you can pick out enemy weaknesses and you get rewarded for it by basically being able to attack infinitely. But it just feels like I'm just like pressing buttons and not really thinking too much about strategy besides weaknesses. It's I don't know how to really describe my feelings on that. It's like I guess it's mixed feelings.
Just that it's
Um,
too simple. You feel like you want more complexity, or you don't like that it's so mindless,
yeah,
kind of thing, or
yeah, I would like a little more complexity in the system. Like it's basically pick out weaknesses and then mash buttons until you win.
and it's just a really easy
It's like that.
routine.
Yeah, and it's like that for bosses too. Like I destroyed one of the bosses in the game just because I picked on its weakness. I just mashed square until the boss died. Because if you are in the animation, like if you're on the animation for attacking and then you attack again, you basically your character kind of runs up to the enemy and then attacks, but the character is still standing right in front of the enemy. You basically just press buttons until the animation runs out, which is a long time. So you can just sit there. If you have like 12 points, you can just sit there and just spam square until the enemy dies. So I think on that boss it took like 100 damage, and I had like like 700 HP. So I barely took any damage at all during that boss fight.
So you can kind of like stun lock
Um,
them, sort of thing. Like while they're in their
yeah,
animation lock,
yeah,
you can just sit
basically.
there and wail on them.
Yeah,
Oh,
and the same thing goes for bosses too. So there's one boss that I was facing, which is like a knight made of ice. So basically, he would attack me because the animation is so long. He could build up another attack, like while he's in the middle of doing his own attack, because you can't move while anyone's doing any kind of attack animation. So he'll attack me, he'll hit me, and then because the attack lasted so long, he built up enough for his own gauge to attack again, and then he'll attack again with another AoE. So it's like I couldn't move, so I couldn't really do anything to stop him from attacking, because when you press the button to do like an attack or anything, you have to go. You have to use up your own action points, which is stored up in a queue. So you have to wait until the enemy's done, and then you can move. So sometimes it gets cheap, I guess, for both you and for the enemy.
So it can be. I guess it's nice that it can be exploited both ways, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I guess not really nice for you, because that battle I felt it was way harder than it should have been. Like if I was able to attack like in the middle of what the enemy was doing, it probably wouldn't have like I burned maybe like 7 revives on that one fight.
Oof.
And about like 20 healing items. It was a long fight. It felt like it was unnecessarily long because the attack animations were so long. But yeah. So then there's also the part on the overworld where I'm like, where for some reason they're bottomless pits. This is why I think it's an adventure game, because I'm like, why are there bottomless pits in the overworld? There's some in towns too. And they serve like almost almost no. Yeah, there's like a hole right in the middle of like I'm in the middle of a harbor, and there's just a hole like in the middle of the path.
Just fall in and die.
It's also obscured by the foreground, so the first couple times I ran into it, not knowing what happened, because all I see was the screen just turns black, and then you reappear on the opposite side of the hole. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? And why is there a hole in the middle of town? But that's why.
See, there's bad design, and then we designed this just because we're gonna be dicks.
Yeah, like
we just don't want you to get lulled into a false sense of security while you're just walking through the streets.
Yeah.
Truly, Super Neptunia RPG is the Dark Souls.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's funny because actually no, sorry, I think of the wrong game. But yeah, for some reason it just happens like that. I don't know. That's why I think it's an adventure game. At least it was supposed to be. Just a lot of design choices on the overworld just make me think that there's something even when you go into dungeons, it feels like there should have been more. They feel like they built something like it's meant for a different purpose than being an RPG. So that's part of the reason why I'm kind of annoyed with it.
It really does sound like you said like they made they took the wrong lessons from Valkyrie Profile, and just made a worse version of it.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
It's a shame, but you do got more coming out with your review on it soon, so you'll have a more in-depth look.
I'll have all my thoughts down, maybe because I was just spewing out my random opinions of it, because it's just a game that just it just confuses me. So I guess trying to talk about it right now, just trying to just putting my thoughts out there right off top of my head, but I'll have my composed thoughts down on my review. So it'll come out, I'm hoping, soon. I heard the game, at least my friend told me, it's pretty short. So I'm hoping to have my review out soon.
And that also, I think, dropped today as well, actually, here.
It did drop today for PS4 and Switch. And it was out on PC last week.
Oh, good stuff. Gotcha. Well, cool. Thank you for that. And yeah, hopefully you can come out of it somewhat positive. And I totally sympathize. I have the time when I feel like I'm speaking about games and I feel like I've got my thoughts so eloquently placed, and then I'm on the spot on the mic and I'm just like, did you do the stuff and there's characters and then your brain goes on so many tangents that you've just rambled off and have to get yourself back on, and you're like, what did I just say? I don't know. Sorry, everybody listening.
That's basically what I just felt right there. I was just like, what did I want to say again? Oh yeah, let's go on about that one thing I just talked about.
Oh well. Well, coming out of E3, we had a lot of buzz going into it, even with Pokemon, but coming out of it during the E3 episode, you all weren't really exposed to it, Zach. You said it kind of came up while you were at E3, so none of you really knew all the drama going on with Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had some rumblings of it, I think, but the impressions that I think Corey was the only one who played it were so positive that sort of drowned out any internet noise about it.
But there has been internet noise, and a lot of it has been, voiced in what some think is the cesspool of the internet, being Twitter, where Peter has lots of fury, and you've been seeing the internet's fury, Peter. What's...
I mean, honest to God, I've been trying to avoid this thing, like as much as I can, because I do think it's really kind of dumb, but the Pokemon fan base is pretty riled up because during E3 Junichi Matsuda, during a Treehouse Live segment, pointed out that even though they are making a service to transfer Pokemon over from the 3DS games to the Switch, called Pokemon Home, the only Pokemon that can be transferred to Sword and Shield are ones that are already in Galar's Pokedex, the Galar region's Pokedex, meaning that not all of the Pokemon will be available in Sword and Shield. This has sparked some furor, to put it mildly.
It's very mild, yes.
Yeah, like I don't want to I don't want to sound like I'm being dismissive of anybody who is like legitimately disappointed by this and expressing their opinions in a constructive manner. I think there is a lot of misinformation and internet noise to sift through.
Yeah, because we don't know the hard facts,
But-
like how the Galar region could have a pretty big Pokedex for all we know.
And honest to God, I think the reason that Masuda gave in clarification is very. It's like, okay, we have over 1,000 Pokemon models at this point, and something had to go.
Yeah, eventually something has to give. You can't have, I mean, they're on like the 20th iteration. We're going to have 2,000 Pokemon available. I mean, come on.
And obviously, there is a certain segment of the fan base that really has enjoyed being able to carry over their Pokemon from game to game, and enjoys having a complete Pokedex of all the Pokemon. The term, I believe, is the living dex. I don't personally play the Pokemon games that way, so this didn't even blip on my radar when they mentioned it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to play with mostly a team of new Pokemon anyway, and maybe a few old favorites if I catch them. That's just generally what I do. But for people who do invest in that particular aspect of the Pokemon franchise, yeah, this sucks for them, and I'm sorry for them. But we also don't really know what Pokemon are going to make the cut or not yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than what we've seen in the trailers, which has been a pretty varied assortment of fan favorite Pokemon.
And you can count on a lot of Gen 1 stuff being kicked around and stuff like that. But I get it. It's that investment over time thing, right? They've invested so much into these, champion level Pokemon that they want to keep bringing them through to smash through things. And obviously people have a hard time letting that stuff sort of go. But it's just, you can only ask so much from this developer to keep doing this and adding, like you said, these thousands upon thousands of models as we get into the next generation and add more Pokemon, because it's either you add more and take something else away, or the game's going to get so exorbitant expensive because it's trying to house all these things, or the alternatives, then let them do DLC, where they release different regions as DLC packs, and if you want that region's Pokemon, then you pay the $10 and add it to your game. But that'll outrage people too.
I think that's a worst case scenario.
But I could foresee it in the future once we start getting into like generation 9, 10, 11, 12, where there's just too much to house and they're trying to keep everybody happy, but they also need to pay people the time and the money to get the actual game out the door, and then go back and model all these fan favorites that people want just because. It's like,
well, and I think as new Pokemon games come out, obvious on Switch, the thing of it is, and this is where the thinkings get dicey. I don't disagree with with people who are saying, why can't you just delay the game? I understand why they can't, because Pokemon is a multimedia franchise. There's a cartoon, there's a trading card game, there's the release date has been given, and they are going to put this thing out. I wouldn't mind them maybe taking a year or two off. That worked for Tales, that worked for Assassin's Creed. They came back swinging, and the games after they took the break were a lot more fleshed out. But we also, again, none of us, other than Corey, have played Sword and Shield, and the people who have played it seem to really like it.
Right.
it may not have suffered,
What I've seen looks pretty good, in my opinion. So I'm not really too worried about this. There are people who are pointing out low poly assets or stuff, like there's a tree. Oh, there's a tree in the overworld that looks kind of low polygon. Game Freak is the worst, confirmed. And I'm just like, guys, can we just not?
Well, exactly.
Please. Can we just kill it with the bad faith arguments? Please.
It's been 3 years since Sun and Moon, so they've definitely had time to develop this. And while they did do in between Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, those were much lighter versions, so they've clearly had time to develop a more full version of the game. And yeah, until we see stuff come out the door, like, we can't be pointing fingers and saying, oh, it's the worst, and yeah, again, over a tree. It's like, again, to make things tick along, they gotta find ways to cut corners, and it's not like the Switch is the most powerful system. If you want Pokemon on the PS4 or the Xbox, then yeah, you're gonna get that thing where everything is rendered to the nines. But the Switch, there's concessions that need to be made, and it's still going to be a great looking game because the Switch is a great looking system. So,
But Nathan, do you have thoughts on this one? Because I know you and I were on. I think we were on a slightly different page with some of it, but I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm of the opinion that yes, it sucks, but it's not something to hold Game Freak over the fire for. Like it's not like you use like even half of those Pokemon that might get cut. Like who's using Cactuar or not Cactuar? What's that Pokemon name? I don't even know.
Maractus.
Maractus.
I saw that meme. Yeah. See, I for one am outraged that Foongus will not be present in before Foongus is in Sword and Shield.
I'm not gonna miss Young Goose. I'm not gonna miss
but did Dunsparce make it?
Pokemon. Did Dunsparce? It'd be a tragedy if Dunsparce doesn't make it.
Right now.
Yeah, Dunsparce is the heart and soul of the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah, get out of the way, Pikachu. Here's the real mascot.
Detective Dunsparce, now in theaters.
He just sits there. The bad guy trips over it. Got him.
He's played by John Stamos.
But yeah, so like as much as I loved, like I did enjoy, like for a period of time I did enjoy having living decks. Like there was a time when I was obsessed with collecting them all. But maybe for like hardcore Pokemon fans, this is a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But I mean, unless Game Freak wants to slow down, or Pokemon Company wants to slow down their plan of like Pokemon stuff just to, have the game's quality go up, I don't know if it'll happen. This is, we live in a society where money talks, and I doubt Pokemon Company wants to slow down their plan just because, a few gamers got, or I guess, part of the Pokemon fan base got mad that they can't transfer all the Pokemon over. So it's something that I would like to see Game Freak, take a year off to get all the models in to, make sure everyone's happy. But I understand this is a process that, Game Freak decided to go with. So just unfortunate, but it's nothing that's gonna like diminish the game for me. It's like it's not gonna like it's not a deal breaker.
No, I hear you. Like I said, I'm totally. It just kind of makes Sword and Shield feel like a bit more of a stopgap release if you're waiting for those features. But the other thing of it is that Pokemon Home doesn't even launch until 2020, and we don't really know what other features are going to be included in that. So, I mean, even then, you wouldn't be able to transfer Pokemon over anyway until next year.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I know they said they currently don't have plans to do it, but maybe they might. But let's just wait and see. It'll probably be just for the next Pokemon game instead. When they have more, while they're in between time between their next games, they'll probably just, add more models in.
Yeah, I mean, if more Pokemon games keep coming out, eventually they'll probably hit that level of connectivity again. Now, there is, again, this is where I said misinformation factors in, because there is a translation of Masuda's comments going around that says, "Oh, we do not plan on having every Pokemon in the game in the future," which makes it sound more permanent. But also, please keep in mind that this translation comes from 4chan. Like, and I'm sorry if I sound dismissive there, but it's from 4chan, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, please take your sources with a grain of salt with some of this stuff.
Well, until everything gets released and we get more details with like the next direct, and as we get closer to November, we're not going to know. They could just be them playing it safe and saying, we got everything except for like the 100 least popular, least played ones that really no one's going to care about. It's not like you're going to get there and all of a sudden there's no Jigglypuff, So
that's why they took that popularity poll recently.
Yeah, maybe. For all you know. And then if they've been telling stuff from championship games and stuff like that, right? At any rate, we are recording lots of talking and coming up on, a couple hours of chatting about games. We had some other stuff to chat about, but we can hit that up next time because I do want to hear thoughts on kind of like, digital store stuff with this whole Alpha Protocol being removed, and we've seen this happen in the past, but we'll get into that because that's a big conversation, I think. So for now, though, unless any of you guys have any final thoughts on this Poke News or anything else we talked about today, I think we can release this all back into the wild. What do you all think?
Works for me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Some people have to go to work. Some people got to go to the gym. Some people got to eat lunch. We're all across the country. Although I think you're all Eastern, aren't you? I'm the only one that's 3 hours behind. You're all 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm at just before lunch. Well, let's wrap this up then, shall we? So thank you very much once again, gentlemen, for coming on the show today. It's always nice to talk with you. Zach, it's been nice talking to you now in person. Thank you so much for joining me on Random Encounter. I appreciate that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Hopefully we'll have you back and talk about stuff because I know there was some other stuff on the docket you wanted to voice, so we'll get you in here to chat about it. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you've got anything to let us know about, comments, questions you want to have answered on the podcast or voiced on the podcast, please email us at podcast@rpgfan.com. You can also find us at Twitter at rpgfancom, as well as on Instagram. I'm always open to being spoken with on Discord. Like I said, I'm at gdelmage on there. And we have other podcasts. Retro Encounters got some good stuff coming out. We didn't really talk about it today, but with the release of Collection of Mana, a lot of us at the site have been playing Trials of Mana, and some of us are coming on board to do it for Retro, which Mike Solosi pretty much grabbed the Retro Encounter car and turned it around and was like, this is what's happening now, as soon as it was released, and completely...
I was in person, and that's true, yes.
Completely kiboshed.
Oh my God. Actually, I kind of want to know, I'm just a bit curious, sorry for interrupting, how when Mike Solosi saw that at E3, how did he just jump up and down?
I mean, the Nintendo Direct in general, Alana and Mike and Corey and, well, all of us were all going wild. But yes, I think he decided to change this next upcoming Retro, the Game Journal, to Trials of Mana during the Direct. So yes.
Yeah, that took like literally 10 seconds.
Yep. It was immediate.
Yeah, I was really curious to see his reaction to that. I mean, we'd had the rumors, but to see it actually drop, I was curious to see him explode. And what was the other big one that dropped? We knew the Dragon Quest Heroes was coming to.
That was big. The Legend of Zelda 2, I think got probably the second biggest reaction in the room. Maybe Animal Crossing. Corey went wild.
Oh, nice. That was, which was looking good.
It was fun.
I just thought, Solosi might also be pretty stoked that they gave all the alternate skins for all the other Dragon Quest heroes.
We were both super jazzed about that. Yes,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
At any rate, he's got us going into Trials of Mana for the July Game Journals, and of course he's got weekly episodes coming out. As we always say, he's a busy fella, and you can go listen to those. You can go listen to backlogs of Rhythm Encounter, our still on hiatus music podcast, and aside from that, we're got that whole website thing, rpgfan.com. You might know about it. You can get news, reviews, check out the scads of E3 coverage that Peter is furiously trying to keep up with his team, and all that sort of stuff.
We put out a lot, so definitely catch up on news articles.
And as always, I'll have my thing you've already heard at the beginning of the episode with all the latest stuff coming out. So thank you again for listening. We'll see you on episode 168, and by see, I mean here, because, radio waves, whatever. Stop it. You shut up. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Take care. Are you having another Mountain Dew?
Yes.
Peter.
I need to stay awake until work.